The iHemp Hour is brought to you by Down on the Farm hemp seed oil. Better eggs, better fries through hemp. Get yours at downtothefarm.biz. My name is Dave Crable. I'm with iHemp Michigan. iHemp Michigan's mission is to educate, inform, and promote the research, development, and cultivation of industrial hemp in Michigan. iHemp Michigan advocates for wellness in people and the planet through hemp, and it begins with the farmer. Before we get to our special guest, Blaine, do you have any news to share with us this morning?
I got a bunch of news to share with us, and everybody sees my background a little bit, but I'm actually on the road today doing a food safety audit. So I'm doing this while I'm working too. So some of the really exciting news that we got to share with everybody is the expo coming up. We're really excited planning this. It's presenting us with some unique challenges, but we're going to work through those. So everybody mark their calendar for January. Friday 22nd and Saturday January 23rd for the Midwest iHemp Expo. It's going to be in the Lansing Center. We're going to be restricted on numbers this year, so we're going to sell out pretty quick. We can only have less than half of what we had last year due to the social distancing. So look for more information coming on that. Yes, it's going to be. That's right. One of the things that we're really excited about, we're going to add some fun to this one, is we're going to have what we kind of refer to as the Hempy Awards. So we'll have some information on that, but we're going to have different categories: photos, food, innovation, a couple other items there. But what we're looking for, and this is why I'm putting it out here right now, is we're looking for 7 judges that will help us probably come to Lansing. We're going to have people send in their product, whatever it might be, hand cream or honey, CBD or whatever, and we're going to judge this. And then we're going to be able to give Hemp Awards away at the expo. So if anybody on the call here wants to be a part of that, Dave, maybe you can put in my contact number.
Yes, sir.
And in the chat, and people can call. We're only going to have 7 judges, so first 7, they want to help us out, do that, have some fun. We're looking for 7 people for that. So. And again, more information come out soon. We're just trying to put in the final touches on everything right now before we get it live on the Midwest iHemp website. Let's see. So what else I got? Okay, so we're going to be able to add a new feature here. I feel like going back to Green Acres again with the market report, but we're going to give a little bit of update here. So prices that we've been seeing over the last little bit, and this is information from the Jacobson. Hemp biomass, I'm going to give you the southeast U.S. because we don't really care about Colorado and Oregon too much, but it's all pretty much the same price, 61 cents a pound for the biomass. Certified organic biomass is a little premium on that, $1.40. The crude extract right now is about $330 a kilo. Crude CBD extract premium, $5.50. Full spectrum distillate is $7.25. Flour, $2.45 a pound on that.
That full spectrum distillate, $7.25 a kilo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That was 4,000 last August, wasn't it?
They don't go back that far. Yes, I don't know for sure. David can't tell you. The range has been between 400 to 700, and since on 10.2, so right in that range, somewhere in there. Let's see, the flour, $245 a pound, and then certified organic flour, $247.50. So let's round up to $248, huh? Hemp grain seed is about 52 cents a pound. Organic hemp grain seed is $1.25 a pound. So. And a real nice article that Jacobson put out on the Delta 8, whatever we're talking about Delta 8, but you can see that on their website. Also, they made a real special deal for everybody, especially for iHemp members. You can get a reduced price on this for like $29 a month, and then every week you'll get that price. Instead of every day, you just get it every week. So anybody's interested in that, contact the Jacobsons or get through us, and we'll let them know that you're an iHemp member, and they'll give you that special pricing for that. Let's see, what else do we got? Okay, Hemp at the Crossroads, that's going to be February 4th and 5th, 2021 at the Embassy Suites and Conference Center in Indianapolis Airport. The Midwest Hemp Council has the information on there. and they've got some. It's going to be another good face-to-face meeting. They're also planning face-to-face at this time, like we are too. Let's see. Ohio is having a hemp summit. This is the first one I've heard of this. The Ohio Hemp Summit will be held November 7th at the Pickaway County Fairgrounds in Circleville, Ohio. The one-day conference will cover greenhouse operations, planning, harvesting, processing, packaging, and marketing. Midwest Hemp Council will be participating in the trade show. Keep an eye on an email for more details, and that's coming up pretty quick on that one. Also, Tennessee's having a growers farm tour. That's also on Saturday, November 7th as well. And let's see. And probably Hunter will talk a little bit about this, but Oregon is doing a sheep study on the hemp potential for livestock feed, so we'll save that for when we talk to Hunter on that. Let's see. We talked about the recall for the cinnamon apple chips. Seneca is the name of the brand on that, and Aldi's and a couple other stores carry that. So that was a few weeks ago. So you probably eat them. They're all gone by now, most likely. So Food Animal Concerns Trust, FACT, they call it, is accepting grant applications for livestock and poultry farms who wish to expand animal welfare, build capacity, and or improve pasture for their animals. Grants of up to $2,500 are available for projects such as building mobile housing, constructing fences, laying water lines. This is through National Farmers Union, one of our sponsors, and that's December 1st is the deadline to apply for that. And that's about all I got for right now, Dave. Nope, I've lost you.
Oh, because I muted myself.
Oh, that's why I lost you. Okay.
One of our iHemp members,
Yeah.
I'll look it up and I'll put it in the chat, but there's the Hemp Day webinars coming up. Our friends down in Indiana, I believe.
Okay.
And I'll look that up, but I'll find that. I'll put it in the chat. And I've been putting some of the other links in the chat for us. So that's
one other thing I will throw out there too is that make sure that if you I'm still getting a lot of phone calls and text messages and stuff from people. So make sure that you're using the iHemp website business directory if you're looking for harvest help, or if you're looking for drying or trimming machines, stuff like that. There's a lot of people that put their information in that classified section. It's real cheap. That's why we've done it. It's like $5, and help everybody kind of put things together this fall if you're looking for some additional help as far as getting your crop in, harvesting in the barn. So yeah, that's it, Dave.
all right. You want to introduce Hunter?
You know, we can do that. Certainly we can. I've had the chance to talk with Hunter a number of times on the Feed Coalition that's going on. She is the executive director of the Hemp Feed Coalition, a diverse set of stakeholders from across the United States and Canada. Its members are brought together by their motivation to increase the health of the planet, our pets, and production animals, and ultimately for ourselves. As an executive director, Hunter utilizes her experience working with regulatory, policymakers, nonprofit, and businesses to implement strategies for developing or emerging hemp industry. The coalition will play a historic role in the recognition of hemp as animal feed and creates an opportunity to work across other industries to create new markets and harness this momentum into FDA approval. I believe celebrating enterprise, supporting our farmers, capitalizing relationships, and working together, we can change the world in this industrial hemp by the realization of that opportunity. And that's a quote from Hunter. So Hunter, we're honored to have you on today. I know you've got a lot of great information to share with everybody. So take it away, Hunter.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me here today, Blaine. It's always awkward to listen to someone else talk about you in the first and third person stuff. I haven't heard that read yet, so I sound pretty good, I think.
Not bad, huh?
Not bad. Excellent. Yeah, so I'm not sure, if we have questions coming in yet. I know we can see those. But I think where I'd like to start is just introducing the coalition a little bit more and why I'm so proud to be working with my constituents and my leadership. The hemp industry, in the United States is now burgeoning, 5 years old after 88 years of prohibition. And when we first started the coalition, the idea was to bring together experts, not only from the hemp industry, but the animal food industry, as well as the production industry, and our farmers and ranchers, along with regulators. That includes our state feed control officials, and of course, all the way up to FDA, CVM, to have a conversation about how to move this forward to gain legal approval for hemp and its byproducts to be used as animal feed ingredients. And a lot of this came out and was really born from a stakeholder-driven study that that happened in Colorado. Our legislature said, why can't we just legalize hemp as an animal feed? Of course, the FDA and our state feed control officials said, no, you can't do it that way. So it was turned into a study that brought most of the stakeholders that I now work with together to have this conversation. That study can be found on the Colorado Department of Agriculture's website. But through that process, it became apparent that there was really not only a lot of interest, but a lot of support from industries and from animal producers. And then we said, well, what do we do with all this momentum after the study was completed? So it was from that momentum that we chose to actually create the Hemp Feed Coalition. And it's, in our third year, so we're a very young organization with a lot of work ahead of us. We're working hard right now to develop relationships, identify principal investigators, and of course, figure out ways to fund research, because it's that research that is the key component to gaining that federal approval, really making a great argument as to why hemp is so healthy, not only for us, but then for our animals. A little introduction there.
Yeah. All right, excellent. So what you said, we were talking earlier, you have a chicken study going currently. Are there other studies around the US going?
Absolutely. And you mentioned the study that's in Oregon, and we have a number of partners with principal investigators, both at universities as well as a couple of private entities that are working on the research. And so I strongly encourage any universities and researchers out there to jump in, start conducting research. If you want some guidance, I would be happy to jump on the phone with you and give you a little or a lot of support, depending on how much you need. But it's really this lack of published data that is making it so difficult. So we have been working on a laying hen application. I have said for over a year that it was going to be submitted in August, and unfortunately, we're still waiting to finish that application. So a month or almost 2 months behind, which is really painful for me. But the reason that that's happening is because we did have to wait for completion of a safety study for those laying hens. And when we think about what the application looks like, I like to explain it that it's in two parts. So the first part is all about the ingredient. So for example, this application is for hemp seed cake and meal. Nutritionally, those are the same ingredient because their nutrition composition is exactly the same. The only difference is particle size and the way it's put together physically. We then look at that and we have to gather certificates of analysis from American grown and American processed hemp seed cake and meal. We can't use any other data, not only on the ingredient side, but also not on the safety side if it comes from outside of the United States. So this is a big reason why this process is so difficult, is because in spite of the fact that most of the rest of the world never stopped feeding hemp to their animals, we're not able to actually use that data. We can extrapolate some information from it, but we have to start all over. And this is why the research that's happening in the US is so critically important. So looking at the ingredient, and that's really what the Hemp Feed Coalition has taken charge of. I'm not a veterinary toxicologist. I surround myself with the smartest people I can find to play those roles. But when we look at the ingredient itself, we have to be able to prove that its nutritional composition is consistent, no matter the varietal, no matter the growing conditions, and no matter the processing conditions. And we also have to take it one more step and identify contaminants that are a concern, what the normal processing is going to be, And then we're going to use that information to create the standards for the industry for the first time ever when it comes to animal feed. And again, this is why it's so important that this is a group of coalition members, a lot of industry partners that are coming together to work on behalf of the whole industry, not just to preserve and protect any one business entity's intellectual property or formula. We want to make sure that whatever we do is open for the entire industry, and that all of our farmers and all of our processors benefit when we do get this legal approval. So once the ingredient portion of it is done, then we have to focus on the safety and efficacy. And that's where the layer trial is really critically important, because every single species that we want to feed hemp to has to go through the same application process. So I took a little while to explain that because we're looking at poultry because they have a quick life cycle. They're less expensive to manage than, say, the beef cattle industry. But on top of this poultry application, and we're focused on layers, we're really hoping that we can also pull in broilers. That's one of the things we're investigating right now before we submit the application. My goal is to have this submitted again by the end of the month and hopefully include both layers and broilers in that application. We also have identified principal investigators at North Dakota State University who are going to be working on beef cattle. Those will be the trials. And then we also, I'm very excited to say, have new partners with a goat trial that has been completed by researchers in Tuskegee University. That's in Alabama. We also are completing a Colorado State University study here with lambs. My hope is that we'll be able to ask the FDA CVM to consider a ruminant application so that we can put those beef cows, the goats, the lambs together into one application as far as showing safety and efficacy of this feed. That would save us lots of time and money as we go forward and open up those markets more quickly. And then to your point, Dave, after we submit the application, and normally it takes between around 4 years, 2 to 4 years. Generally 4 years is what they tell us it's going to take. And because AFCO, the American Association of Feed Control Officials, and FDA CVM, they're enthusiastic. I'm not going to say that they're comfortable yet. I think that's a lot of our job, but they're really enthusiastic. And so they have said that they're going to look at fast tracking our application, which means 18 to 24 months. So half the time, considerably shorter than 4 years, but yeah, it's still a long process. Of course, once we get going down that pathway, then we should be able to start opening up those markets strategically as well. So that was a really long answer to a short question, but yeah, it's a process. And I have a great slide if you guys want to look at the differences between an AFCO application and an FDA CVM application. I think it helps to show just how difficult this process is. Do you want me to pull that up?
Yeah, yep, you can share.
All right, 1 second here. All right, can you guys see that?
We can.
Excellent. Yeah, so in this slide, you see on the left is the new ingredient definition. That is the pathway through the American Association of Feed Control Officials. That's
if you hit the slideshow button, it'll go full screen for us.
Sorry about that, I forgot.
That's okay. Yep, thank you.
There we go. That's much better.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to explain to people is that this is very species specific. 2 years ago when I first started having this conversation, the question that I was asked the most often was, is this gonna get my cows high? And right, and we giggle, but it was really the most common question, that I had.
Yeah.
And so from that time frame, it's evolved, and the question that I get now is really just shock over the fact that it's not already approved and that we still have to go through this really difficult process. So one of the things, and I'm going to bring that slide back, I just wanted to get a second and not talk while I'm trying to figure this out. 1 second. Oops. So through the pathway, as I mentioned, each species has to be approved through safety and efficacy. So we have had some GRAS notifications that apply to hemp seed products, but that's only for people. And so it does not automatically transfer over to species. We have to show that it's going to be as safe and effective for the chickens as it is for beef cattle, as it is for those lambs or goats as well.
You said you had to hire a consultant for the safety side, and what kind of expense is that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Dave. It's my favorite. But
that wouldn't be mine.
Yeah, and the reality is that compared to the cost of the actual research projects, it's not nearly as high. But depending on the number of species and the complexity of what we have to show, because we have to prove that the animal feed or the feed is safe to feed to the animals. And then we also have to examine the byproducts and co-products as we go through it. So depending on the species, it can be even more complex. But on average, just the application, and this is with us doing the majority of the work on the ingredient side, it's $30,000 to $50,000 just to get the application complete. And that's because we do need those veterinary toxicologists and the species experts. So not only do we have a veterinary toxicologist, but then we've got a chicken expert or 3 that is helping us go through this process. And then on top of it, one of the big expenses on the front end of this has been those certificates of analysis to show that we do have consistent nutritional composition, that we do understand the potential contaminants, and how processing deals with that to ensure that we have a safe product. So it's quite complex. Now, once we get an initial ingredient application submitted, so for example, this first one that's focused on meal and cake, then we'll have that ingredient portion of it fairly complete for each additional species. We'll then amend the definition to include those species. So the cost should come down, with the exception, as I mentioned, if I can get all of these ruminants on one application, then it'll probably be a higher cost on the application side, but then we'll definitely get more bang for the industry's buck with more species approved.
You know, what's so funny about this is that, you know, you can go to the grocery store, right? You can buy hemp parts all day long, right? It's the seed, it's the grain. You can go, you know, so that's not a problem, but we've got to go through all these steps to be able to do this for livestock. So just kind of ironic in one aspect there.
But it sounds like similar to the hemp building side, where we have to first define what hempcrete is, and then we define how it's used in a structure. So here we have to define what a hemp meal, or are you doing, you said hemp cake and hemp meal, right?
Yeah, so those are together because it's generally the extruded seed and then that's ground into the meal. Some of the other ingredients, and we're looking at hemp seed oil as a top dress for horses. That's one of the projects we're working on right now. We have a great medical investigator. So specifically for performance horses, where they need a lot more calories because they're working really hard. So there's opportunity to add nutrients, not just calories, obviously some vitamins and minerals that these working horses need as a dressing on top of their normal feed.
Oh, really?
So that
Cool.
is the top dress. And hemp seed oil, and also filtrate, so some people call it butter, that comes from, it's a byproduct of crushing for oil, is another popular top dress for horses that need the extra nutrients. So that's one of the other things that we're looking at. And then there's been a lot of conversation actually about hemp hulls and swine. There's some ingredients in those hemp hulls that swine need on a daily basis. That's, I hear, is difficult to find in other ingredients. So we're going to investigate that as well. And then, as I mentioned, once we get those ingredients defined as far as nutrition and contaminants, then we'll add this species to it.
Are they using any of the hemp oil for anything? The hemp seed oil, are they using that in any mix and feed?
I mean, absolutely, because it's got such fantastic composition. I mean, when we talk about, and I have a slide I can share about that too, if you guys want to see it. The thing that makes hemp really unique, especially the meal and cake. So a lot of the comparable nutritional ingredients are things like soy and camelina. But then when you look at the actual composition of the oil itself, hold on, let me pull this slide up, then I can, it's easier for me to talk, right? Yeah. So when we look at the composition, the oil is not only a higher concentration, so it's, the meal itself is 30% protein and 10% fat. That's an unusual composition simply because most of these ingredients are focused either on the protein or on the fats. And so having this 30% protein content and then also having a 10% fatty acid profile is really, that's very exciting. And the big thing about the fats that are in hemp seeds specifically is that it has that perfect 3-6-9 omega ratio. That's one of the reasons that hemp is also a superfood. So here we go. Let's see. Can you guys see that? I'm trying to make sure. So here's that slide, and you can see all of those linoleics, the omega-6s, 3-9. Oh, no. Oh, hold on. Let's see here. Oh. All right. My auto share is on my PowerPoint. That's what I'm struggling with here, is to try and figure out how to get that off.
Here it comes.
All right.
There we go.
Excellent. All right. Is that showing up as just that screen or just that slide?
It's not full screen yet. From current slide, 2 over. There you go.
Yeah, it's automatically set up to forward. That's what I couldn't figure out how to stop, because it overwhelms my screen as well. But this is one of the things that's really exciting about hemp seed products, especially these co-and byproducts, things that are currently waste material and yet have just an amazing nutritive value. So as we're identifying each of the ingredients that can go into animal feed, we're just learning so much more about the nutritional composition and also how to deal with contaminants. One of the conversations that we've had quite a lot is around concerns over whether cannabis sativa L, our favorite plant, right, as it is being planted for crops in the United States in soils that have hosted other food crops. What is the pesticide and the residual pesticides that are going to be taken up by the hemp plant, and where do those show up? So it's somewhat ironic that one of the biggest reasons that we love this plant, because of all its remediation properties, is one of the concerns that we have to address as far as safety. And that goes right back to just a real lack of data. 5 years is not a lot of data. And again, because we can't use anything outside of the United States, it makes it just that much more difficult to provide enough data to make a really great case to FDA CBM. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So Hunter, if people can't I have some farmers that have contacted me about getting some of the grain, doing that kind of stuff. They're their own animals, so there's not a problem with anybody feeding hemp to their own animals, correct?
Yeah, so let's really clarify what's legal and what's not legal or illegal, because that's the gray area that we're in, is that it's not technically legal, but it's also not technically illegal as we go through this process. So the fine line is that hemp can be fed to animals, but you cannot market those animals. They cannot enter the stream of commerce. So that's really the fine line. And I'm sure you can imagine that that also increases the cost of our research, because we can't then sell those animals. Yeah. Now, there is a pathway with the FDA CVM to get a feed use approval for animals that are going to be in clinical trials, but that's not a real great pathway for the rest of the industry, right? But I mean, the reality is, again, that in most countries, we never stopped feeding hemp. So this is not an unusual feed source. And in fact, in the early 1900s, hemp was right up there with soy and corn as far as a normal, regular feed source that you would find at the mill when you went to pick up the rest of your animal feed ingredients or any of the products that you needed. So it's a really strange position to be in, because I think most of us recognize that while this is silly, we're locked into the regulatory oversight that we share with every other food ingredient, regardless of the historical relationship that we have with hemp in the United States.
So
if anybody wanted to feed on their own and do this and have their own animals, is there anything they can do to support any research or documentation or anything that they can provide to help?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the challenges that we have is determining inclusion rates. So how much of the hemp can we include as an ingredient in a ration? And I'll tell you that part of the goal of trying to determine that is to be able to come to the FDA CVM and say, at this percentage of inclusion rate, there's toxicity events or there's ill health. And what we found over and over again is that the animals stop eating it before there's any attributable ill effects. So we're not able to really pinpoint at what level a toxicity event even occurs. Now, that sounds great, right? Like that sounds, well, that's wonderful, because we're not going to make our animals sick, which is definitely not our goal. But it does provide some difficulty when the FDA CVM says, well, how much is safe and how much is unsafe? And when we go back to them and we say, well, we can't really give you a percentage of unsafe, what we can say is that at inclusion rates of 30%, that's pretty high for most feed sources. Chickens will still eat it at 30%. But the beef cattle, they're not so excited. You push past 20% of hemp in their feed ration and they stop eating it. Well, that makes sense, because they're ruminants. They're not necessarily going to be consuming grain or oilseed as a major part of their diet. So that's one of the things that folks can definitely help us with. All of these species, we're working on a rabbit trial. We've got this equine trial. So also, in addition to the inclusion rates, how much can you feed to the animals that they like and it's palatable and they'll continue to eat it, is also anybody that has the opportunity to share any tissue or serum from animals that have been fed hemp over a number of years, and especially if they know what the nutritional composition or contaminants in that hemp would be, because there's the other concern that we can't really address with the FDA CVM is, what does long-term consumption of this ingredient look like for these animals? Well, 5 years for a horse, right, or for a dairy cow is not very long. Obviously for a chicken, that's plenty of time to figure out what those long-term effects and exposure would be. But again, it all comes down to data and really figuring this out. So I would love to hear about folks that would be willing to share. And that's another role that we play as the coalition is I take very seriously the need to protect our farmers and ranchers right now. I don't know, I'm sure you guys have probably talked about the USDA IFR, but there's some concerning aspects of that I think really threaten our farmers. And so the Hemp Feed Coalition is a great way to protect our data. So the folks that submit certificates of analysis, they get sample IDs that's scrubbed anytime that we present tables of information or data to FDA, CVM, or even the public. So it's an opportunity to participate and to share data and information without taking the kind of risk that well, most of us are concerned about right now, and with good measure, I might add.
So Hunter, tell me this. Let's talk about membership first. So how do people become a member if they want to become a member of the Hemp Feed Coalition?
Absolutely. Our goal is to be as inclusive as possible. And we have well, I guess it's not brand new. It's about a month and a half old. We have a new website that I really love. I want you guys to go visit it. Tell me if you love it too. But you can sign up for a membership right on our opening page of the website. It's $100 a year. That's it. And the goal there is to, again, be as inclusive as possible, but to also be able to raise a significant amount of our funds through those low dollar memberships. So really more members with the opportunity to also support education and outreach. The more folks who are members, the more they're engaging with us and the more they can share and proliferate this information. So it's hopefully inexpensive and everybody could become a member. Once you do become a member, you'll get access to our email blasts. You don't have to be a member to get on our email list, but then that's the first step to actually being able to join a work group and start to contribute to this process.
That website.
And do you get fun? Go ahead, Dave.
Hempfeedcoalition.org.
It is. Yep. You got it.
So do you get donations from businesses and other entities that are trying to use this as feed as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the membership is that $100 a year. And then we do have sponsorships that are available. You can reach out directly to me if you're interested to find out about those sponsorships. We do also have not a lot, we can always have more strategic partners, but we have some strategic partners who are incredibly important to getting this work done. One of those that I'd like to thank is Eurofins Biodiagnostics. They've been incredibly helpful determining assays and really developing the narrative for FDA CVM. We also have championships, and those champions really help us to get the job done either for a species specifically or for these application fees that Dave and I talked about earlier. And iHemp is our champion, not only for our lamb trial that's happening here, but also for the chicken laying hen application. So thank you to iHemp for doing that. We also have trade opportunities. Healthy Oil Seeds is providing quite a large amount of material for us to engage with the actual research projects and the principal investigators as they move forward in this process. So there's a lot of ways that people can support this work, either financially or even through product trade. And one of the opportunities with product trade is the chance to start developing supply chain relationships as we go forward through this process as well. So that's a big deal. Those supplies are obviously integral to being able to move forward. And then every person that is willing to share a certificate of analysis is a strategic partner for us at this point too.
I have a number of those that I'll get to you for the oil and the stuff that I did this year. So we'll talk about that a little later. Dave, I can't see anything in the chats. The way I'm doing this time on my phone. Do we have any questions out there from the general public? Attendees? Anything?
If anyone has any questions, you can put it right in the Q&A of the webinar. Hunter, what do you see as the, so let's say everything goes well. You get your application done at the end of the month, it's submitted. They do a great job in 2 years, 24 months. They say we can feed. So what's the market look like at that point?
So let me pull up some numbers for you guys. And in fact, we're working on compiling a market analysis right now that's species specific, as well as the potential that we see in the market. So give me 1 second, because I want to make sure that I give you good numbers. And I do have some research at my disposal. Imagine that.
Yeah, because ultimately we want to see this being grown by farmers all over the U.S., right? And then we need those processors, and we have a whole industry to build right here.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And why I mentioned being able to really work on that supply chain by connecting processors to researchers and then to the animal feeders themselves. Whoops. So some of the information that I've been able to gather, and I think you guys will be completely shocked that I've had my focus on the poultry industry, but because that's the application that we're looking at right now. So the numbers that we have is that just poultry in and of itself, so broilers for meat and then egg laying hens, is $1 billion industry in the United States. And the potential market for that is 64 million tons of mixed feed. So if we think of 30% of that 64 million tons being hemp, then we've got at least 2 million tons that we need to be able to generate just for a broiler feed. So the potential for that is massive. When we think about the actual industry just for poultry, consumer retail is $95 billion annually in the United States is how much chicken and egg products are actually sold. So that's a massive market. And then again, thinking about that fact that that's 2 million tons of hemp seed meal or products, again, that's looking at a 30% inclusion rate. Now, there's some assumptions there that this is going to be a protein supplement and it's going to be used in those specific ways. The other thing that I want to mention as well is, hold on, I'm trying to find an additional number. There was a recent article that came out and said that just the pet industry is a $25 billion industry. And what I mentioned is that the horse industry is really excited about this top dress, the oil and the filtrate. I would also say that the equine industry are early adopters. They are excited and enthusiastic. They definitely
have money.
Right, and horses are not inexpensive in and of themselves. And so that marketplace, and it's ironic to me because the companion industry numbers that we see are always focused on dogs and cats. And we have to work on that a little bit. I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to be a great feed ingredient for dogs and cats on the hemp side, the nutritional side of it. But on the equine side of it, this is a massive industry. They're already spending millions of dollars on hemp and hemp oil products every single year for their horses. Mm-hmm. The one thing that we have to watch there is that if there becomes too much focus on the cannabinoid side of it, then we take a big risk that our race industry and our performance horse industry is going to start being concerned about the hemp that's going into the feed. That goes right back to the ingredient definitions and the work that we're doing as far as inclusion rates and saying, hey, this is safe, even if those cannabinoids show up, that they're not performance enhancing or that they're not toxic.
Yeah, we had talked about that where someone's was pushing back that, hey, it has cannabinoids because they were intentionally not cleaning their seed as well. Blaine's been going through this because he's starting to do some hemp seed oil and such, and the hemp hearts, and that whole process of screening and cleaning is is a bit of a technical challenge. So will there be like a defined process? Do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another place where having our constituents actually be part of this process is really incredibly important. We have been looking at so let me take a step back for a second. We have 9 different processors who are on our ingredients committee. Those 9 processors range everywhere from small guys that are centrally located with a 50-mile radius to really large processors that are serving contracts for entire states or multi-state regions. So all the way from very small processors to much larger processors who are looking at 1 million tons a year. Those are numbers they want to see. And so by bringing those groups together, we've identified what that process and the controls look like that we think we could recommend for the industry as a whole without really hurting any of the processors that are actually working right now, and also providing the information to FDA CVM that we do have process controls in place. So there's not a kill step. We're not recommending that in the process, but the big thing is how are we cleaning this seed? Because that's where FDA CVM is concerned. And it's taken a while to get them to understand that we don't have to, well, I'm still working on this. I should say that we have not quite convinced them because the application's not in yet and we don't have approval. But the goal is to show them that we don't have to wash this seed, that if we simply do a good job of removing foreign materials, foreign seed, and detritus, that cannabinoids are not naturally occurring or created in the oil seed itself. And so it negates and removes that concern over cannabinoids. Now, in the long term, we do want to move into other hemp products, not just seed products. But at this point, being able to have that conversation and use these incredibly healthy byproducts that a lot of people are already feeding is definitely our goals, to get to market as quickly as we can with those products. And then be able to start gathering data, really build the industry knowledge and ability to share and trust each other with this information to be able to begin to talk about a pulp application. There's obviously lots of enthusiasm. You think about how much waste material we have coming from the biomass and flower side of the industry. That's a huge opportunity. And the nutritional analysis that I've seen from that material is incredible. There's no reason that we shouldn't be using that as an ingredient. But we really have to hone down on these process controls when it comes to extraction. It may eliminate certain solvents or certain processes for ingredients that could go into the animal feed. So we have a long ways to go before we're really ready to put that in front of FDA CVM, but it's there. So
I
know that there's been some farmers that have tried to feed the biomass to their livestock, and livestock's pretty smart. If they smell it or taste it or lick it and it's got the ethanol or whatever in it, they just don't eat it. They just push it out of the way and go to the other stuff.
We fed our male plants last year from this crop to the chickens. Threw it in with the chicken coops and they ate it just fine. They didn't mind it at all. So this is exciting. So 64 million tons of seed. How many acres of land would that be? Do you think probably 50 million acres of land, probably?
Let's see. So I'm just going back
you get
to
about 1,000.
Yeah, go ahead, Blaine, if you've got an answer
I was
right
going to say you can, your harvest is usually somewhere between 25 to 30 bushels per acre at 44 pounds per acre. So you're looking at 1,000 pounds or more per acre. That's what you're going to get for sure.
Of the oil seed?
I haven't been that successful yet. Yeah.
So we're looking at even more land. So here's my question. So we're excited, for hemp seed, hemp grain to be grown and the hemp fiber. But there might be some people listening right now in this webinar that are growing for cannabinoids and such, and they're like, ugh. What about cross-pollination? Has that crossed your desk, and what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know anyone in the hemp industry that hasn't had, I was going to say exposure. Maybe that's not funny when we're talking about pollination, but I mean, it's really a concern. One of the biggest concerns, I think, as this industry comes online in the United States. And, you know, and the reason it's a concern is, again, for all the reasons that we love cannabis sativa for, right? It's malleability, it's hardiness. But when you have a plant that can be a different phenotype and a different genotype in 3 generations, you know, there's a lot of stuff we got to watch there. I think one of the ways that we're dealing with that is by setting standards and not promoting varietals or a specific type of, you know, hemp that can be used as animal seed. So, for example, when we're looking at setting the standards for an oil seed, if the oil seed matches that standard, then it's an approved ingredient. It's able to go into the feed source. I am not going to put down any varietals as a recommended, or that only these particular varietals of seed can go into the food source. I feel like that's one of the best ways that we can support the industry, is by really setting the standard and working towards a standard. And I'm not the USDA. I don't want to do the USDA's job. They need to do that job. And we need to also really stand behind our extension agents and support research and traceability, not just on the food side, but on the genetic side and the R&D side. There's a lot of really stable grain varieties, as you guys know, that come out of Europe. And so we have opportunities to not only use those strains that are very stable, but I think our genetic profile is going to also stabilize once we move down this path and we have more than 5 years of cultivation. In American history, we just need to relearn this plant. And honestly, I think one of the best assets that we have for this is our traditional farmers who understand crop science and understand what this looks like. One of the questions I get all the time too, and I would love to hear if you guys hear this, I'm sure that you do, is a 25-mile radius going to protect me from, you know, the marijuana grow down the street? And that is, man, that's a difficult question. There's so many other questions that have to go.
Which way is the wind blowing? Yeah.
I mean, are you sharing water? Like there's so many things. So I think we're going to get it, but we also have to get to a place where we can talk about it without it being so scary. And it is, I think it is scary right now, but as we go through this process, I think we'll figure it out, especially if we listen to our farmers.
That's good. Good. Well, thank you so much, Hunter. This has been great.
There's so much more we could talk about on this.
Right?
There's so much more. Hunter, now I also want to say, yes, Dave, we do have a recipe, but let me talk about Hunter for a minute here. So we're excited that Hunter is going to be one of our presenter speakers at the expo this year. So we're going to be delving into this in a lot more detail as well on that. So this is going to be a major force going forward in our sustainable world, just like our expo is going to talk about. So we're really looking forward to that, and I'm sure we're going to have some more great information from Hunter in the future. So, yep. So yes.
Clyde, did you have a question real quick? He raised his hand. It might have been
He's on mute. I don't know if
I clicked for him to unmute, but that's okay. We can move on.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh, there he is. Hey, Clyde.
Oh, now we can hear him. There he is. Hi, Clyde.
Blaine, are you or Dave either one aware of that off-campus group called the Michigan Biotechnical Institute?
I'm not.
Well, I was involved a little bit 20 years ago with them, and their charge was to take entrepreneurial ideas and help commercialize them.
Oh.
I mentioned something to Dr. Thalen about that, but I never followed up. I'll do a little follow-up because it sounds like, as a matter of fact, I've been trying to put together a package for them, maybe to help degum fiber and do some things with it. So I'll touch base with Dr. Thalen and maybe get down there on campus when the things loosen up a little bit. Stop in. I can't remember who the guy was that well, when I got involved when I was in that alfalfa cubing project back 20 years ago. And we got them involved.
Well, we certainly would be excited to get others involved in this, especially on the food side of this too, because that's going to be a huge market as well for this. Huge market.
And Hunter's program was terrific. I loved it.
Good. Thanks. We try to bring as good quality content as we can to everybody. So.
All right. Thanks, Clyde.
Yep.
All right. Cool.
All right. Well, unfortunately, Dave, I don't have my little hemp hat. I meant to grab that when I left the house today, and I let it. So I don't know. I'll have to show that to you later. So you have to get that. But today we're going to have today's recipe is hemp seed soup. I got this from All Recipes. I always like to give credit where I find these. This is an incredibly old recipe that they adapted from an old Latin text. Measurements were originally listed in weight, but I rounded them to approximate volumes. Either way, they are super flexible as it is a soup, so just adjust however you like to do this. So the ingredients are 4 cups of water, a cube of vegetable bouillon or more to taste, a 3/4 cups red lentil, 2 leaf blanks of bay leaves, 1 pound of carrots chopped, half pound of carrots chopped, a 1/4 pound of fresh mushrooms, finely chopped, salt, ground pepper to taste. They have a tablespoon of olive oil. Boo. We're replacing that with what, Dave? Hemp seed oil. That's right.
Hemp seed oil.
That's right. 1 onion chopped, 2 cloves of garlic minced or more to taste, a 1/4 pound of hemp seed. I might even throw a little more than that in there, and a bunch of cilantro chopped up. It takes prep time's about 20 minutes. You cook it for about 30. You bring the water to boil, put in the vegetables and bouillon. What's interesting about this one is they cook and stir the hemp seeds in this one in a separate skillet over medium heat until toasted and fragrant, about 2 to 3 minutes. So stir the toasted hemp seeds into the soup, add your cilantro, and cook for about 5 minutes more. So a great one for that. And we will have hemp hearts available very shortly as soon as we kind of tweak that machine. So yes, we will.
Excellent.
So that's all I've got. Just want to remind everybody again about the expo coming up. Again, we're super excited that we can do this and have this as a face-to-face. We're also going to have a virtual component to it as well. Look for stuff coming out on that. And I noticed one person, Jeremy, said he'd like to be on the judging committee. And so we're looking it's only going to be 7. So the first 7 that volunteer are the members. We'll have them on as judges. And also there'll be a survey coming out real soon, hopefully this weekend. If you could quickly, it's only going to be a few questions, respond to them, send us back. That'll give us a little direction as we move forward on this. And we're excited to do the Hempy Awards. We think it's going to be a lot of fun and have people. Most of them are going to be for Midwest area hemp growers and processors, although we are going to have a category that's going to allow others from out of the Midwest area to also apply. So again, we're looking forward to that. So.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think that wraps
up
iHemp Hour. We're right on time.
It does. Yeah.
Anything
Dave, if you can
ask you, Hunter?
I mean, I just want to say thank you for helping to educate our farmers and our feeders about what this process looks like, and get involved. Let me know if you have questions, if you have resources that you want to share. There is nothing too small that to help us get this job done. So thanks for the time today and talking about it. And I appreciate all the work that you guys do and our farmers out there, because it's harvest time. So good luck, you guys.
It sure is.
Hunter, Dave, if you could.
Yeah,
let's see. When you shut it down, Hunter and I are going to talk for a little bit after the show, so don't shut this down right away.
I don't have a way to do that, so
okay, we'll talk later then.
Hunter, on your website, I checked out your website, and real quick, I didn't see a way to join.
So, and I just heard this the other day, that the donation button and the get involved don't really clarify that that's how you get to a membership. So you can go through the Get Involved and send a message that way, or you can also just contribute the $100, and then I'll get that message and make sure that your membership gets engaged. So thanks for that, Dave. I just heard that literally earlier this week. So the designer and I are going to be working on that right now to make sure that.
Totally get that. It's a process, but the cool thing, it's not print, so we don't have to read like.
That's true.
We just have to redo it. So we're on that path. And the Midwest iHemp Expo website will be updated in a couple weeks. We're gonna get through harvest here, and we're gonna jump on that. So
excellent.
Right. So thanks again, Hunter. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Oh, no, next week. We'll talk about that. So next week, another exciting show. Craig Van Buren from the Geekly Lab is going to be on, is going to walk us through the whole process of how they do the testing there. And I think he's going to be able to give us a little bit of testing update, what they're seeing this year, what's gone hot, what's not. But it'll be another great show for sure next week.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Hunter.